It was meant to be Jin's moment. His stage. His spotlight. After years of standing alongside 6 other members of BTS, Jin, the eldest, the anchor, the quiet strength behind the world's biggest K-pop group, was finally preparing to embark on his first ever solo world tour, Run Seokjin EP Tour. The anticipation was massive, the emotions overwhelming. Fans around the world had their eyes set on July 12th, the opening night in Goyang, South Korea. But what no one expected was the presence of someone who wasn't scheduled to be there. Someone who didn't need to be there. And someone who showed up anyway, Jungkook, the golden magne, who had just wrapped up months of solo commitments and international brand deals, had never been mentioned in any official release related to Jin's tour.
No posters, no announcements.
Nothing to indicate he'd even be in the same city. But then came the whispers. A private sighting at Incheon Airport. A blurry photo taken at midnight. A soft voice caught on a fan's live stream that sounded unmistakably like Jungkook's. And then confirmation. Jungkook had arrived at Jin's final rehearsal. He walked in quietly, dressed in black, unnoticed by many of the crew at first. But Jin saw him. And that moment, the moment he turned and saw his youngest member standing in the doorway, was when everything changed. Multiple staff members described the atmosphere in the room shifting instantly. Jin looked like he was holding back tears, one witness shared. He didn't say a word for a few seconds. He just stared. And then he smiled, like he hadn't let himself breathe until that moment. The rehearsal had been emotionally taxing. Jin's solo performances, especially Epiphany, carried a weight of expectation not only from fans but from within himself. The song, which once brought Japanese audiences to their feet, now felt heavier than ever. Alone on stage, Jin had been pushing himself to perfection. Every note, every word, every memory, but when Jungkook entered the room, he didn't offer advice or corrections. He simply sat in the front row of the empty stadium and listened.
No cameras.
No press. Just the two of them, one performing, the other watching with the kind of silence only deep history can hold. At the end of the rehearsal, Jungkook approached Jin, placed his hand on his shoulder, and said, "You don't have to carry this alone." The moment was unscripted, unrehearsed, and unforgettable. What followed next was even more unexpected. According to insiders, Jungkook requested to quietly accompany Jin to the first leg of the tour, not as a guest performer, but as a silent companion. Not on stage, but behind it. His presence, he insisted, wasn't for show. It was for Jin. Fans across the globe erupted when the news leaked. #He showed up began trending worldwide. X, formerly Twitter, was flooded with emotional tributes, artwork, and reflections. "It's not just about music," one fan wrote. "It's about loyalty. It's about healing. It's about showing up when it matters most." For Jin, the tour had always been about proving he could stand alone. And he will. But now, he'll do it knowing that in the wings, just beyond the spotlight, stands someone who has never stopped believing in him. Jin's Run Seokjin EP. Tour kicks off July 12th to 13th at the Goyang Auxiliary Stadium and will travel across the globe to cities like Chicago, Osaka, Anaheim, Dallas, Tampa, Newark, London, and Amsterdam. Tickets, VIP packages, and soundcheck access are already selling out, a testament to the worldwide anticipation for his solo debut. But perhaps what fans will remember most isn't just the vocals or the visuals. It's the quiet gesture of one brother who showed up when no one expected him to, and reminded the world that even legends need someone in their corner. This tour was always going to be historic. Now, it's personal. The air was heavy with heat, but it wasn't just the summer sun that made it hard to breathe. It was the weight of something unspoken, something sacred. Jin was about to take the stage for the first international stop of his Run Seokjin EP tour, and fans in Chicago could feel it in their bones. The crowd of nearly 60,000 was roaring with anticipation, many holding banners that read, "You're not alone, Seokjin," and "From Korea to the world, we're with you." But no one, not even the fans who'd been following every whisper of insider info, could have prepared for what happened backstage just minutes before showtime. Jin was silent in the dressing room, his silver microphone resting in his hand. He had been perfecting tonight's set for weeks, but something still lingered beneath his calm expression. Something unresolved. A quiet ache only one person seemed to recognize. And then he heard a knock. No security, no manager. Just a familiar rhythm. The door creaked open, and Jungkook stepped in, and oh makeup. No glam team. Just him, dressed in a plain black hoodie, his hair tied loosely, his eyes already glassy. Jin didn't speak right away. He just stared. Not out of shock this time, but something softer. Something like relief. "You came," Jin finally said. Jungkook nodded. "I told you. I'm staying through the first week." According to a staff member who witnessed the exchange, Jungkook then reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled out something folded. A piece of paper, creased and worn. Jin opened it. It was the original handwritten lyrics to Moon. "I kept it," Jungkook said, his voice barely audible. "You gave it to me the night before the Speak Yourself tour. Said you didn't know if you'd ever sing it again. But now you are, and I want to be here for that." Later that night, as Jin stood under the massive LED moon that floated above the stage during Moon, fans noticed something different in his voice. It was gentler, more vulnerable, as if he wasn't just singing to the crowd, but to someone behind the curtain, someone watching. And when the final note rang through the stadium, Jin turned slightly to stage right, where, tucked just out of the spotlight, Jungkook stood, eyes full of pride, hand over his heart. He clapped slowly, not for the performance, not for the fame, but for the man who had finally found the courage to walk into the world alone, and yet, not alone at all. After the show, fans caught a glimpse of the two leaving through the same backstage hallway.
No cameras. No interviews.
Just two silhouettes walking side by side under the harsh fluorescence, as if they were still those young boys from Busan, heading back to the dorm after late-night practice. But this time, they were different. This time, one had grown into a world-class soloist, and the other? He chose to stand behind him, where no one could see, but where everything could be felt. An official statement has been released by HYB regarding Jungkook's ongoing presence on the tour, and there are still no mentions of him in future setlists. But fans have started calling him the Silent Shadow, a quiet force making sure that Jin's tour, this deeply personal, once-in-a-lifetime moment, never feels too heavy for one pair of shoulders to carry. As the tour continues to Osaka, fans around the world are now watching not just for the performances, but for the quiet, powerful bond unfolding behind the scenes. Because sometimes, the most unforgettable part of a concert isn't the encore, it's the person who stands behind the curtain, clapping. With a heart that's been there all along. Rain tapped gently on the roof of Kyocera Dome as fans lined up outside, many holding handmade signs in both Japanese and Korean, their fingers trembling with anticipation. Inside, there was a different kind of storm brewing. One that wasn't made of water, but of memory, grief, and something unspoken between two people who had once held the weight of the world together. Jin was hours away from taking the stage for the second international stop of his Run Seokjin EP tour, and while the setlist remained largely unchanged from Goyang and Chicago, something about the Osaka show felt heavier. This was Japan, a country that had given Epiphany its first standing ovation years ago. A place that Jin had once called a mirror to his soul, in a documentary clip that resurfaced online just days ago. And tonight, as the clock in the dressing room ticked towards 7 p.m., Jin sat in silence, headphones on, eyes closed, repeating one lyric under his breath. "I'm the one I should love in this world." But across the hall, Jungkook was pacing. He hadn't intended to stay this long. Originally, Chicago was supposed to be his last night with Jin. A quiet goodbye backstage. A final nod before returning to his own obligations. But something in Jin's voice after that show had changed his mind. "Come to Osaka," Jin had said, so softly that Jungkook almost didn't hear it. "There's something I need help finishing." That something wasn't on the schedule. It wasn't listed in any document, nor rehearsed during tech runs. But Jin had quietly asked the sound team to prepare an alternate track to The Astronaut, just in case. A version with dual vocals, one old, one new. One his, the other Jungkook's. As the arena lights dimmed and Jin began his performance of Moon, fans in the front rows noticed something unusual. The LED backdrop, normally filled with starlight and orbiting galaxies, began to show faint traces of ink, a handwriting that slowly revealed itself, line by line. "IT" was the original lyric sheet Jungkook had returned to Jin in Chicago, projected now for the entire world to see. Jin's voice trembled near the final chorus, not out of fear but release, like letting go of something he'd held in his chest for too long. And as the last note faded, a soft ripple of surprise went through the crowd, not from the stage, but from the speakers. Jungkook's voice, "IT," started low, like a memory reawakening. He wasn't on stage. He hadn't appeared, but his voice, layered over Jin's, sang the final refrain of The Astronaut, a harmony that felt less like a duet and more like a conversation between two souls across time. Fans screamed, sobbed, held each other. Some didn't understand what they were hearing. Was this pre-recorded? Was Jungkook backstage? Was this planned? Backstage. Jin stood still, his mic at his side, his breathing deep. A single tear rolled down his cheek, not from pain, but from a kind of peace. A resolution. Jungkook, watching from the monitor feed, didn't say anything. He just leaned against the wall, eyes closed, hand pressed to his chest like he was singing along even without a mic after the show. No statement was made. No confirmation. Just silence, and a photo posted to Jin's private staff group chat. A picture of two chairs in an empty green room, side by side, one with a neatly folded lyric sheet and a handwritten note. "For the nights I couldn't say it out loud. Thank you for hearing me anyway." By morning, fans had discovered the Osaka harmony was real. Audio techs anonymously confirmed that Jungkook had recorded the overlay just hours before the show in a small mobile booth inside the dome. It wasn't planned. It wasn't polished. But it was real, and in that rawness, something deeper than perfection had been born. Now, the question isn't just whether Jungkook will continue traveling with Jin, but whether the tour itself is becoming something far more intimate than anyone expected. With Anaheim up next, armies are bracing for what some are calling the Emotional Eclipse Tour, a journey not just of a performer stepping into his light, but of the shadows that walk with him, quietly, faithfully, like gravity. IT was supposed to be a quiet day. No press.
No fan zonas.
Just another routine soundcheck before Jin's next sold-out show. But Anaheim had something else in store, a moment so raw, so unscripted, that it would ripple through ARMY like an aftershock. Hours before doors opened, a handful of VIP attendees lucky enough to secure soundcheck access were ushered into the venue earlier than expected due to forecasted high temperatures outside. Most assumed they'd hear Jin casually rehearsing a few lines, maybe offer a shy wave if he noticed them. But instead, they walked into something entirely different. There was no stage lighting, no booming mic tests, just one person, standing alone in the center of the stage, hood down, eyes closed, mic in hand, was Jungkook. He didn't see the fans at first. He wasn't performing, he was practicing more precisely. He was singing to himself, a quiet, aching version of Epiphany in a lower register, slow and stripped of the theatrical buildup. Just piano and breath. He wasn't rehearsing for a surprise duet. He wasn't filming content. There were no cameras, but someone forgot to cut the audio line to the audience feed. And the small group of fans sitting quietly in the front rows heard everything, and they wept, because Jungkook wasn't just singing a song. He was speaking through it, whispering between verses as if Jin could hear him backstage. He doesn't know how bright he is, you know. He's always the one lifting us. But no one ever lets him cry. Not even me. His voice cracked. He stopped singing midline, looked down at the mic in his hand, and laughed bitterly, quiet, broken, as if surprised by his own vulnerability. Then he said, "Young, if I sing this tonight, it's not for the crowd. It's for you." In that moment, the few fans present didn't move. They didn't record. They didn't scream. They just watched, stunned, tears slipping down their cheeks as they witnessed the youngest member of BTS speak to the one who had always protected him, now trying to protect him back. Jin, backstage, reportedly stood frozen at the audio monitor. He heard it all, and when Jungkook finally looked up and noticed the audience, his eyes widened. a flash of embarrassment, but then a small, resigned smile. He bowed silently and left the stage. There was no official announcement. No duet that night. Jin performed as scheduled, flawlessly as always. But during Epiphany, his voice broke slightly in the final chorus, and he didn't apologize. He just placed a hand over his chest, where his in-ear piece rested, and whispered, "Thank you." No one in the crowd knew what he meant. But Jungkook did. Later that night, fans trended hashtag he heard everything and hashtag Jungkook in Anaheim, with many speculating that the quiet Anaheim moment marked the emotional peak of the tour. Not for spectacle, not for surprise guests, but because it stripped away the myth of superstardom and revealed two men, brothers, trying to hold each other up without needing to say a word. And articles were published officially about what happened at soundcheck. No footage was released. But it didn't matter, because sometimes the most powerful performances happen when no one is watching. And for those who were there, it wasn't a mistake. It was a gift. Jin's tour prepares for Dallas next. Fans are watching not just the schedule, but the spaces between the songs. The way he glances to the side of a stage, the pauses, the silences, because now they know someone is always listening.